Newsmaker Hotline. Congressman Mike Johnson is here. Mr. Mike, welcome back. Long time, well, 5 or 6 days. No chat. Good talking to you once again.
You guys too. I'm in Washington. We were up late last night. We waited until after midnight Eastern time for Pelosi and the Democrats to emerge from their hole where they're negotiating amongst themselves for this spending spree. They didn't get it done last night, so we're now all awaiting further action today. It's crazy times on the Hill.
They're like little crabs on the beach, huh?
Pardon me just a second. I got a text about 15 or 20 minutes ago when we had mentioned you were coming on, and you can speak to the veracity, the truth of this. Pelosi has changed the House rules overnight. There will only be one vote if a congressman votes for the infrastructure bill, i.e. the $1.5 trillion. Then that is automatically a yes vote for the $3.5 trillion. Is that true, or is that just somebody misinterpreted something they read?
No, that's the rumor we've heard that emerged from their smoky room last night. And look, it doesn't surprise us there's no rules here on Capitol Hill anymore. They have destroyed regular order. I mean, while the attention of this country is focused on the shocking disaster in Afghanistan and the open border collapsed into chaos and skyrocketing inflation, lingering pandemic, the Democrats in Washington, guys, are working to enact the largest, most reckless spending package in U.S. history, and they're doing it without any regular order. That's the sad reality today. The regular legislative process has been abandoned for partisan gimmicks, and that's what we're dealing with.
Well, we had Dr. Sean Wilson, DOTD Secretary, on earlier this hour, and he seems to think that what Louisiana, I guess just like Dr. Cassidy, Senator Cassidy, that what Louisiana would gain from this is it outweighs what they see as detriments. That's what Dr. Sean said. It's a trade-off.
Absolutely not. Let me say, look, I appreciate my dear friend Sean Wilson. I really do, and I do not envy his job. He probably has the hardest job in Louisiana, no kidding about it. But I do think we ought to set this record straight. I heard a little bit of that. I was listening on the app as I was getting my coffee here in the office in Washington, okay? Sean is sharing talking points and summaries that have been put out by Nancy Pelosi's Democrats in Washington, okay? The first bill that he's talking about, the $1.2 trillion, is twice as long as the King James Bible. So I know Sean is too busy to have read the 2,700 pages, okay? Much less anything they put out on the companion bill, the 3.5 or 9 trillion. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars. It's just staggering. Let me just tell you that this package, okay, what the Democrats are proposing, guys, this spending spree, will literally add up to more than the total taxes paid by all Americans so far in the 245 years of American history, okay? It will add $17 trillion to our national debt, which is greater than the combined value of every economy on the earth, excluding ours, okay? This is not play money. This is serious stuff, and it will not help Louisiana. It will kill us, okay? First of all, the first one he's talking about, the bill, let's just talk about just the first bill that Sean was discussing this morning. It's not an infrastructure bill. It's a Green New Deal welfare bill. It only has 23% of the money going to roads and bridges and ports and things that we all care about, desperately need, right? If there was a real infrastructure bill, I would be leading the charge to pass it. We would get a bipartisan consensus of everybody to do that. But that is not what this is. According to the CBO, this money's got to be borrowed. We're talking about deficit spending to do most of this stuff. And it will not help Louisiana. And the little pittance that we would get for this, guys, is not in any way justifying the loss of our freedom and the surrender to socialism that what they're trying to do with this.
Now, wait a minute, Congressman Mike. I love you dearly, but he said Louisiana would get $6 billion. That's not a little pittance.
No. Okay, that's the talking point from Washington, but it's not accurate, okay? We're already going to receive $4.8 billion anyway from the Federal Highway Trust Fund, whether these bills ever passed or not, okay?
And this isn't another $6 billion on top of that?
No, ma'am, no. They're combining it all together. Louisiana would only receive $1.1 billion in new money over 10 years, okay? So that's about $110 million a year. For context, guys, that's about a fifth of the cost needed to complete just the 3.6 miles of one interstate section of I-49 in Shreveport, right? It is not worth it. And by the way, all the new Democratic bureaucratic red tape and the DOTD Secretary Buttigieg saying equity and social justice will be evaluated in the highway system now and all this stuff, the new rules would basically kill the I-49 City Connector project out of the gate. Okay, so if they're saying that this is going to benefit us in our region, it's absolutely not right. And by the way, the bill is front-loaded for big cities and big metro areas. It kills rural areas. Oh, and by the way, they also want to pay for all this by crushing new taxes. Okay, so a lot of the money is going to come from Louisiana small businesses and family farms. They want $14.5 billion in new taxes over 10 years on the petrochemical industry alone. That will kill one of the largest industries in our state. 100,000 jobs come from that industry in Louisiana.
Mr. Mike,
This is a killer for us.
You had made the point a couple of times when we spoke to you last week and the week before. You had made the point that it was your opinion that Republicans would stand united against the bill, and that because of its scope, its overreach, that there would be some common sense Democrats, I think the term you used was, peel off some of those and block the whole thing. What's the status of that idea?
Well, that's what's happening right now. There's 9 or 10 reasonable Democrats in the House who come from swing districts, and they're not going along with this. They realize that this would mortgage the futures of not just our children but our grandchildren. It would play into the hands of communist China and Russia and our adversaries at the worst possible time. We are on our back right now, guys, because of the debacle in Afghanistan, the open southern border, and all these other crises that Biden has created. We cannot afford to do this. This is not a game. America's strength is on the line right here. And so they're not going along with it. So that's what the long night negotiation was, Pelosi trying to wrangle her crazy leftist socialist wing with the handful, 9 or 10 reasonable so-called moderate Democrats that are left here in the House. And they want two different things. They're not going along with the package, but the progressives have more, they have a greater number. They have over 100 members, and they're forcing Pelosi to do it. And so it's just as you said a moment ago, as somebody texted you, we're going to get an all-or-nothing deal in the House, and there ain't no way, guys, that I would ever vote for this and do this to the residents of Louisiana. We're one of the poorest states. We need infrastructure investment more than anyone, but this is not infrastructure. This is socialism, and I'm not going to have any part of it.
United States Congressman Mike Johnson. Good talking to you, Mr. Mike. A pleasure as always, anytime.